Good afternoon and hello. I hope you're all doing well. Christian here with episode 2 of my Friday video dispatch called 3 Bullet Friday. This is a new thing I'm doing which shares 3 pieces of information, inspiration, ideas, things that have come up during the week that I think might be of particular value to you and the people that you work with. Before I start, for those who don't know me, my name is Christian Byrne. I'm a transformation coach, and I typically work with ambitious female professionals who are at the early stages of transitioning into their own business, or they're in the early stages of building that business. And we work together to remove all that stuff that can come up around self-esteem and self-doubt and uncertainty and overwhelm. And we replace it with 2 things: very high levels of self-esteem and self-belief, and unstoppable resilience. And if we unpack resilience, we're talking about commitment, strong levels of emotional control, and a respect and a passion for learning and competency. So I'm going to talk about 3 things today, I'm changing the format a little bit. Usually I might try and prepare a little bit more for these. I have lots of notes and things, but sometimes I find that's getting in my way. So I'm trying something new today. This is all completely unscripted. I have 3 ideas, 3 things that I want to talk about because I've had a really busy week. I've probably about 10x my time on Zoom this week, and that's calls with clients, it's research calls, and it's also people that have jumped onto my my free 45-minute breakthrough call as well. And there's 3 things that floated up I think have been really interesting. The first one of those is the difference between asserting and allowing yourself to find a solution when you're looking for help. The second one is a piece of meditation guidance and a link to an amazing guided meditation that I'm going to share later on. And the third one is a reframing exercise that you can use if you find yourself getting quite anxious and fear of being judged or rejected when people show up and call you out on an idea or what you're doing, which can often happen, particularly in the early stages of that. As always, I'd love to get your feedback on these. And if you want to talk about any of the stuff I'm talking about today in more detail, you can just drop me a direct message, depending on where you're watching this. If you want to get into something a bit more detailed, I do offer that free 45-minute breakthrough call, and I will be sharing the link below should you want to jump on one of those with me as well. Okay. So I'm actually at my parents' house today. I'm supposed to be on holiday, so I've just dived in to do this really quickly, hence the change in background. I'm also joined by young Frankie here, who you can't see, who's trying to get some sleep, but I'm sure he may pipe in a little bit to share his opinions. Probably won't, actually. So first and foremost, let's talk about this idea of asserting versus allowing. On more than one occasion this week, with people I've talked about, it's very clear that there is a tremendous amount of different types of help that we can get within personal development and sort of self-helpery today. When I first started my journey back in 2001, 2002, there was a lot less options available to us. Now there are so many different types of therapy, of personal development support that you can get. Some of the people that I'm speaking today are clearly in the process of trying to decide how to get help or what help to get, which is fantastic because, for anybody who's made the decision to take responsibility for their stuff and to transform, to grow, it's amazing. But on a few of these calls, I've been conscious that choice has become quite overwhelming, and there's people advising this and there's people advising that, and there's this person on Facebook with very strong sales message and great rhetoric. And I think for me, when I see people who are ready to get help getting overwhelmed by choice, I think it can make the whole process a little bit more difficult, a bit more painful. So the advice I'd like to give is if you are in that position, whether you're at one end, just at the very early stages of curious about what you might get help with and how you might get it, or you're actually ready, you're poised to make a decision, try and not assert yourself into that decision or be pushed or influenced into that decision by someone else, and take a step back and try and allow what and who you're going to work with to find you. Now, I know that sounds a bit woo-woo and a bit mystical, but it's the difference between making a decision from the head and trying to be over analytical about it, and making a decision from the heart or the gut and actually feeling your way into the solution. And the reason I say that is that if we're overly analytical about what we're going to do, sometimes that already puts up the blocks to it working. We already set out objective expectations about how much it costs and what we expect to receive. If we allow ourselves to be followed into it intuitively or through the heart, then we're actually following our own sense of inner guidance, which is much, much more powerful. For me, and you're listening to somebody now that has tried everything. And I've been a seeker, pretty much a very passionate seeker from the last 20 years. Some of it because I've wanted to get help, but most of it is because I'm just very curious, and the things that work, I typically go ahead and train in. And through all the stuff and all the work that I've had done and I've experienced, the one thing that gave me the biggest breakthrough, when I say breakthrough, I mean the one thing that pushed me into action after experiencing it, was simply reading a book. It wasn't Reiki, it wasn't hypnotherapy, it wasn't coaching, it wasn't any of the stuff that I've had done. It was a book that I read that came up in a conversation that we're having with some friends over dinner back in, I think it was 2002. And they were just talking about, they weren't recommending the book, they weren't trying to influence someone to read it, they just said it was quite interesting. But I remember when they said that, just ping, something went off in my head. I'm like, I need to read this. I went and bought the book the next day. I sat in a little cafe called the Lime Tree Cafe. And if there's any Dubai peeps watching this, you'll know where the Lime Tree Cafe is. I'm talking about the one down in Jumeirah 1. Lovely place. I sat in the corner of that cafe and I read that book cover to cover in the space of an afternoon. And it just changed my world. It flipped me on my axis. So the reason for you for telling that is I wasn't coerced into reading that book. No one had pushed me into it or promised it was this great breakthrough thing. It just felt right. And it's the most important book that I've ever read, and the most important moment that I've ever had in terms of my own journey. So number one, try not to assert or push or analyze yourself into a solution when it comes to getting help. Just try and allow your intuition and your inner guidance to gently take you to what you need. Okay. Number two is all around meditation. Meditation's a very important thing to me. I've had a meditation practice now for about 15 years. Like most people, I'm more enthusiastic and consistent during some times than others, but generally I try and meditate at least once a day for an hour, 15 minutes, but any meditation's good. And again, it's something that when the time is right and depending on who I'm working with, it's something that I encourage as a basic daily exercise, just to help my clients just slow down, just slow their mind down, slow their life down a little bit so that it can support what we're doing. I was working with someone on Tuesday and they were having a bit of a struggle with the whole meditation practice. And I remember there's an amazing guided meditation by a guy called Alan Watts, the wonderful, amazing Saint Alan Watts. If you've heard of him, he was probably one of the first guys that interpreted and brought back Buddhism and Taoism for the East and made it accessible to the West. And if you haven't heard of him, check him out. He's incredible. He's got the most engaging, hypnotic voice you've ever heard. And he's got the short 14-minute guided meditation, which is bit part education, bit part philosophy, bit part, part guidance. It's really, really good. I'm going to put the link below this video. If anybody's involved in their meditation right now, or you want to sort of get into it, I really, really, really encourage you to click that link and give yourself an incredible 15 minutes. Not only will you have a great meditation, the teaching and the wisdom that he imparts and the way that he imparts it is just extraordinary. So get on that. It's amazing. Now, the third and final one is a bit of advice around how to reframe people that show up to call you out or to start sort of picking at the phrase of your ideas and what you're doing. This has come up a number of times this week, and it's also come up for me because when I made the decision to focus my work around female professionals, it instantly created a little bit of controversy with a few people. And I was prepared for that because I've done the work to know how to be prepared, but it was difficult for me. You know, one of the shielding strategies that we have when we've got self-esteem issues, one of the classic ones, is people pleasing. Okay, I'll be all things to all people. I'll make sure I get everyone, because the more people I like and the more people that like me, the less chance I have of getting found out or hurt. So putting my stake in the ground and making the decision that I was going to stand for that group of people with a big decision. But it also invites, as it will for everybody, controversy, because you're drawing a line in the sand and you're being divisive. But I learned, and so the advice I've got, if you're somebody out there that's got an idea, or you've actually announced an idea and you're getting people coming in going, what's this all about? Why are you doing this? And they're being overly critical and perhaps forcing you to stand up for yourself and challenging your belief and your conviction around that. It can be very painful. It can be very difficult and very awkward. But you've got two decisions. Okay, you can slide back behind the line that you put in the sand for yourself, and you can go back into being generic, or you can use that feedback. You can use that controversy to fight for what you believe in. And if you stand up and fight for what you believe in, and I'm not talking here about going out and picking fights and getting all, you know, antagonistic and argumentative with people. I'm talking about just using those people that have come in to challenge you on this as a way of deepening your wisdom and your conviction and your commitment to what you've chosen to share and what you've chosen to do or what you've chosen to specialize in. I say wisdom rather than knowledge, because obviously wisdom is applied knowledge. And when you take on people that have shown up and have started to ask you difficult questions about that, it automatically takes you to a place of strengthening and deepening your understanding of why you're doing it. This eventually will lead to strengthening your commitment, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a very, very important part of building that proactive resilience, particularly in business, particularly in early stages of leaving one life role or one job and standing up and standing for your own business and idea. So if you're thinking about standing for something or announcing something, or you've already done it and you're feeling vulnerable and exposed, that's perfectly understandable. But that's where the magic is. Because if you can stay next to your flag and take on people that are coming in to challenge you on it, it will only lead to strengthening and deepening your commitment to such an extent that you'll just get better and stronger at what you're doing. That's it for me today. I hope you've all had a lovely week, and wishing you all a wonderful weekend wherever you are in the world. So just to recap, if you're looking for specialist help for yourself right now around personal development or anything a bit deeper, try and allow that solution or that decision to come from your inner guidance rather than trying to assert yourself into it. Number two, if you're into your meditation, you're struggling with meditation, or you're curious about meditation, I really, really encourage you to click that link that I'm going to share below and listen to the wonderful Alan Watts. It will help hugely. And finally, if you've put a flag in the ground and you've decided to stand to something and people are coming at you, stand tough, right? And look to that confrontation and appreciate it, be grateful for it, and use it as a resource for strengthening your wisdom and strengthening your resolve and your commitment to doing what you've decided to do. Okay? Very best for me, and I hope to see you all real soon. Bye now.